Good afternoon. My name is Dara Patel. I see participants are coming in, and I'm going to go ahead and get started because I know everybody's time is very precious. So today, us at Inspired Instruction, we're doing a webinar on Partners in Progress, Strengthening Family School Connections for Students' Access. And just before I start, a little quick about myself. My name is Dara Patel, and I'm one of the client directors here at Inspired Instruction. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, so our agenda for today is going to be first talking about why family and school connections matter, okay? Then we will go on to forms of parental involvement, right? Like what are different forms of parental involvement? Then we'll talk about strategies to increase parental involvement. And finally, some apps and websites that are really great resources for you to check out if your school or district at the moment does not utilize them and for you to explore, all right? So before we go on to even talking about, why they matter, just some facts to consider, all right? So did you know that in some cultures will view educators as authority figures who they don't question, even if it's to learn about their child, what their child is doing in the school. All right. And the reason why I want you to think about this is because we're then gonna, as we go into this webinar, I want you to keep these things in mind as we're exploring those different strategies, okay? Because think about your district at the moment, right? Think about the parents that are part of your district. How much are they involved? How much are they not involved? And then think about these facts that I'm presenting to you at the moment, all right? Some parents may feel intimidated by asking help with homework or any other things that are happening in your school districts. In some cultures, making eye contact is considered disrespectful, while others will discourage participation in discussions or debate. Right? For example, I'm Indian. I come from a culture where elderly person is always right? So we sometimes avoid eye contact with them. So when I, as growing up, going through school in America, I sometimes had difficulties because I wouldn't look at the teacher because I know they're always supposed to be right? And that would hinder my ability to participate in discussions. So very similarly, that's what my parents think too. So if my parents were to come to any events, they are just going to not engage as much because to them it's like, nope, it's a respect thing, right? And in some cultures, they value work as important as school. And so families may need their students, right, or their kids to contribute to the family. And therefore, they're not available, right? So our whole idea today is to really think from the lens of meet families where they are, right? So think about what's the best way to communicate with this family? How are we as school supporting these families, right? How frequently are we providing these updates or that they want the updates, right? What resources might they need to be successful to participate in any of the activities that we have to offer at school? So now let's go ahead and talk about why do family and school connections matter? So a famous, Helen Keller, as many of you know, right? She once said, alone we can do so little. Together we can do so much, right? This is a thought process that we are seeing family as partnership, right? This is not to say, this family has this issue or that issue. It's to say, hey, look, we have the best interest in the students, right? And the students' best support system besides us are their families. So if we work together with the families, we're really doing what's best for the child or the student, right? That's the best way to give student or the children the best support possible. So let's look at what the research says in terms of parental involvement, right? So what research says is Strong family and strong school ties, right, equal stronger student outcomes. Why? Because there's that shared responsibility, right, between the family and the parents to really be invested in the children or the students. There's increased motivation because when the student or the children see that my teacher is just as invested as my parents are, it increases their motivation to do better because they see that they're invested in me, they're invested in what I'm doing, right? It builds the trust and the communication, right? How many times, especially as school leaders, you walk out and the parent sees you and they know that as busy as you are, they can quickly grab your attention to tell you. And that if you were to say, hey, look, I just got to get to this, but I will get back to you, they know you will get back to them, right? Because they trust you. This is just how you've been this is how your interactions have been, right? So really, it really builds that trust and communication. Research shows that there's fewer suspensions when there's a stronger parental involvement. There's an increased graduation rates. There's improved attention in the classrooms. And hence, because of all of that, right, there's higher grades and better test scores. And ultimately, the strongest thing we see is stronger self-esteem in the students, right? Our goal as schools, right, is to raise individuals, right, raise these students to be independent thinkers and workers. And really what we're saying is having a strong family and school tie does help with a stronger self-esteem because the student or the child sees that both parties are equally invested in the child's life, right? So now let's go on to talk about forms of parental involvement, okay? Parental involvement can be home-based involvement, right? And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because oftentimes we may say, hey, this parent never comes to any PTA meetings or doesn't come to parent-teacher conferences. They might not be involved. I was raised where my parents did not go to any events. It's not because they didn't want to, but number one was the language barrier. My parents did not understand the language that was being spoken to them. They understood English, but they didn't comprehend it when it was being expressed to them at what they thought was speed of light, right? But I can tell you, my parents were those home-based involved parents. I would get what, like 98 on a test, and they were like, what happened to that 2%? That's how involved they were, right? So we have to acknowledge that parental involvement isn't always because a parent showed up at the school. You have to think, what are they doing at home, right? So example is the parents are helping their children with homework. They could be discussing school topics at home. They could be, they're working on creating home environment for learning, right? They're giving a safe space for their child to do what they have to do for school, right? And just to learn, to be independent thinkers and learners. And then you have the school-based involvement, right? That's the one where we see the parent in and out, like, oh yeah, that mom is always around. She's amazing, right? So that's where school-based are where you have parent-child activities that, you have it for the parents, maybe once a month, maybe 4 times in a year, right? Something that you plan out. It could be attending parent-teacher conferences, which I know many school districts have one at the beginning of the year, one towards the middle of the year, right? Or towards the end of the year. Then you have it where you have those traditional parent-teacher associations, right? Or organizations that lead activities, and parents can come and participate in those activities, right? And many schools also have school advisory board, right? Where a parent is one of the stakeholders because they help you make a decision when it comes to the school or the district, right? And again, the reason why we're having this, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because it is so important to remember not to forget those that are doing a lot of work at home with their kids. And just because they don't show up at school does not mean that they don't care, right? It's not safe to assume you don't see them, they're not invested. So now the bulk of our talk today is going to be on strategies to increase parental involvement, right? What can you as a school leader do so that way more parents are involved and are advocating for their kids and are telling you what is working and what is not working, right? So first one is simple, weekly or monthly newsletter. I'm sure your school district probably is already doing it or your teachers are doing it. In case if you aren't doing it as a school or district, something to consider, right? Whether it's a weekly or monthly newsletter. What do you involve in it? What's happening in the school? What is coming up? What are some upcoming dates, right? It could be days that we have off, etc. Another important thing that you can have in these monthly or weekly newsletters are how-to guides to support learning at home, right? And here's an example. You might be wondering, why is there an anchor chart of math here? The reason why is because how many times have we heard from students, right, that they learn, let's say, this area model at school to multiply, and they go home, and then their parents are like, no, 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 I've taught the standard algorithm way. Let me show you how to do it this way. And then hence the student comes to school super confused. Like, that's not what my dad taught me. My dad taught me this way. Well, teacher's teaching it this way. Dad taught it this way. Now the child is super confused, right? So that's where these how-to guides to support learning at home comes in handy, right? That's to say, whatever your teachers are doing in the classroom, communicate that to parents at home so they can replicate those strategies at home. So that way the communication that's happening at school is same as the communication that's happening at home. And how much better is it you as a, think about yourself as a parent, right? And if you have kids in middle school or high school, right, and they come home and they need help in geometry or something, oftentimes you hire a tutor, right? But imagine just having an anchor chart that just talks about the steps of how to do it, and now you're just teaching it to your child, right? So efficient, right? That's not to say that's the only way, but that is one way to increase parental involvement, because now they know how to do it, and now they're going to help teach it to the students or their children, right? And which parent wouldn't want to help their child? I don't know any parent that wouldn't want to help their child. There might be frustration, but you know they would want to help their child, right? And third bullet, right? Use their preference languages through either translation tools or bilingual staff, if you have, to help parents understand what is being sent home, right? So that could be that your newsletter is, maybe you're putting it through Google Translate or any of the websites, and you're translating it for them, right? This way, the parents feel that they are connected to what is happening in the school. All right. So again, whole idea is the communication is consistent, so that way what student is learning at home is being reinforced. I'm sorry, student is learning at school is being reinforced at home. Hence, parent wants to be more involved because they know how to help their child at home. Right? Think about two-way channels. So you might say, what does that mean? That's just to say, how are you getting the parents involved so that way they can tell you what they have to say, right? So something you might want to do is do a survey, a school survey. So I'll show you an example, which again, this will be something that's shared. This will be shared with you after the webinar in a little handout, okay? So here's an example of a survey that you can send out as a district or as a school to your parents, okay? And that is getting to know you, right? So here are some questions to consider. One question is about your family, right? Who lives in this household? Who are the adults in your child's life who may not be living in the household, right? What languages are spoken in your household, right? What holidays or traditions are important to your family? Are there any cultural practices you would like us to be aware of or honor, right? Think about it. I went to a school district. I grew up in Yonkers, and I'm Indian. There was no Diwali break, right? But when it came to Diwali, I wanted to be with my family. How awesome would it have been had my teacher or my school known, like, hey, Diwali's coming up, right? So idea is you're investing in the parents, you're investing in the families. And think about yourself. When you feel that you're being invested in, you know you want to show up, right? Because you see like, wow, they really care what is important to me. So therefore, I'm going to do something to show that, right? So for them to even fill this survey out is involvement because they want you to know what's important to them, right? It could be list 3 things you're proud of as a family, right? Isn't that important to know? What if there's a family that's going through something harsh? There's a family that's going through divorce. Wouldn't you want to know that, right? Rather than finding out on the 2nd or the 3rd day of school or through a teacher, right? Other things is communication preferences. Again, this survey is catered for school leaders to use for parents, okay? And you can take whatever works for you. You delete what doesn't work for you, right? But here it is, what's the best way to reach you? What's the best time to contact you? Do you need a translator or any interpretation support? How often do you want to hear from your child's teacher or school, right? And then there's few more for family engagement and participation and school support and services. I mean, if you look at family engagement and participation, it says, have you attended any school events in the past? Why or why not? Here, they will tell you, right? Oh, I work at nighttime, therefore I cannot attend. So these are some ways, some questions for you to consider to get to know your families. It is ideal to send the survey out in the beginning of the school year, so to really get to know your families, but it's never too late to send it out, right? Because listen, you're just trying to get to know these families so that way they see how invested you are. And it's all about that involvement, right? Like, what can I do so I can help you be more involved in the school, right? So if it says something as childcare, something for maybe your school advisory board or your parent committee to consider, hey, we're noticing that many of our parents are not engaging because they don't have child support. Well, can we provide child support when we are providing some sort of a workshop for the parents? Will they show up because of that, right? This is information for you to gather to then use to strengthen the bond between the families, right? So that's one survey that you can do. Another thing could be providing office hours for families, right? Like think about at high school how, the teachers have office hours for students. Could you have office hours for families, right? It doesn't have to be every day. It could be, hey, listen, every Tuesdays and Thursdays after school, open door, many principals do have open door policies, right? But these are just designated times, like, hey, 3 to 4 p.m. every Tuesdays and Friday is office hours for families with Mrs. Patel. And they come in and they voice their opinion. It could be about anything, right? You could have a sign up for that. Another thing you might do is physical or digital comment box. That's really just a feedback form, right? That is, if you had something physical, that's like a little box that you might have maybe in front of your office space, right? And it's kind of covered so that way not anybody can just take out the information, or it's by the front office, right? But its idea is for parents to give you feedback of something that they want to share. And it could be both positive and next steps, right? Because you always want to think parental involvement. If they like something, you want to repeat it, right? So you want to know. So here's an example of something you can try. Thank you for, so this is where a parent can tell you, hey, thank you for hosting literacy night. We had a great time. Wouldn't you want to know if a parent loved it? Or maybe the parent felt, hey, X, Y, and Z happened. And they're going to say, I wish you knew. And now they're letting you know, hey, there's something that could be done differently for the school, right? But again, the language you are using, you are also modeling for the parents the type of language they should be using with you when it comes to engaging, right? So you're trying to increase parental involvement in a positive fashion, right? So this is something to consider. And if it's digital, that's just to say, instead of it being a physical paper, you're also providing a Google survey link, for instance, right? So that way it's easily accessible by the parent's phone. Maybe you have like QR codes that are around the school where they just scan and then they quickly send you a feedback, right? Maybe you have these QR codes just up all the time so parents can send you feedback as they go along. And then somebody is responsible to keep track of these as the feedbacks are coming along, right? You can keep them anonymous, or you can say, hey, if you want to share your name, that is optional too, right? And going back to that survey, it would be a great idea if you keep every question to be optional, right? It's only if you want to fill it out. We want to know whatever you want to share with us, right? This way you're creating that trust, because maybe some families don't want to share certain things, and that's okay, right? So that's our two-way channel idea. Another way to increase parental involvement is just think about your school structure, right? Create a welcoming environment. Are you out there greeting families at drop off and pickup? If you are, continue doing that, because that's a way to increase parental involvement, right? Designate a school family liaison, and the parents should know who that person is, right? So if it's not you as a school administrator, who is there, right? Is it the guidance counselor? Is it the school social worker? Oftentimes some schools will use school social worker, because we may not be able to have a position just that's called a family liaison, right? But have a designated person. The family should know, hey, when I have an issue or when I want to say something great about the school, I should be able to go to, this is my person to go to. It's a principal. It's, oftentimes like they come to the secretary, but what does the secretary say? I'll let the principal know and they'll get back to you, right? Who likes to hear that, right? So having a designated person increases your chances of parents coming to you and telling you if something is going on, or to share their thoughts. Post multilingual signs, right? And visuals to make the building feel more inclusive, right? Like I said, that language barrier, right? I told you, my parents did not show up because they didn't understand. So imagine when parents start seeing language that they do understand. It's going to raise their confidence and be like, oh no, I want to be involved because I understand what is happening, right? More strategies, right? Let's think about it in the form of educating and empowering the parents, right? So now that parents are being informed, some things you may do is host family workshops. You can host family workshops on how to help your child at home with math, right? Some math strategies to help at home. It could be understanding the IEP or 504 process that is happening, that the school utilizes, right? Because oftentimes parents will hear about MTSS and think it's special education. Well, host a workshop on what that means, right? You can also have it on, the tools, right? Especially nowadays, teachers will post a lot of things on Google Classroom. Well, what if parent doesn't know how to navigate that tool, or OnCourse, or how to see grades? You can host a family workshop because ultimately you want to help them where they need the help, right? And again, going back to that survey, you might include, hey, what kind of workshops do you want us to host? And host a workshop that they want, right? You can also do lunch and learn with the principal or coffee with principal, right? Idea is this might be a good time to share any updates that are happening with the school. Let's say there's construction happening here. Let me give you an update, right? Or it could be the time where parents are coming in and asking questions about what's happening around the school. And then great thing would be to record these. So, those that couldn't attend can still be in the know of it by watching that recording, right? So again, you're increasing that parental involvement because you're giving them the avenue to be able to access the information you want to give to them at their time. You can host family nights, right? That's where many schools would do like a literacy night, right? Where they do different centers, and then parents get to come in and get to act like a kid, to be like, oh, here's a listening center, and here's a read aloud center, here's a make and take center. And then parents go around and try it out in the classrooms, right? Sometimes they have math game night, right? That's where parents come in and learn about all the different math games that they play in the classroom. Which parent wouldn't want to be part of that, right? And again, for those that couldn't attend, can you send a packet home? So they don't feel like, oh, I have no idea what happened. But like, oh, I'm so sorry you missed it. But here's some resources. Here's a layout of how we do literacy, how we do centers in the school, and how you can help your child at home, right? You can even host parent nights. And the whole idea of parent nights is a parent comes in and teaches other parents about something they know so much about, right? It could be cultural based, it could be talent based, right? It could be skill based, right? But the idea is the parents are leading the workshops for other parents. And as we all know, right, time is of the essence. So really think about providing flexible opportunities, right? Every school is different, right? Oftentimes we say evening time is the best time, but not for every parent. So take that into consideration, right? So try to schedule events at different times. Could you do some events in the morning, like that coffee with the principal? Could that happen in the morning while lunch happens midday, right? Could it be virtual? Is there an option to join in virtually? And at the end, again, can you record these meetings or these workshops for those parents that could not attend to still view it later and be able to provide their feedback through any of that, online platform that you have or that physical form that you have for parents to fill out, right? Again, you want to meet where the families are, right? We often tell our teachers, meet the students where they are. Well, let's put that same hat on and meet the families where they are, right? And so now let's talk about resources. And by resources, I mean like apps and websites that are out there that school districts use to do communication. All right. So some of the famous ones are Seesaw, Class Dojo, Remind, and EduBlocks. Okay. If you have not heard of any one of these, I would highly encourage that you check them out. I know most of the school districts already have one, but if there's, if you use Class Dojo and you want to take a look at Remind, do it. But I know Seesaw and Class Dojo and Remind, they all translate in different languages, but the parents just have to choose that setting on their end. And once you send a notification, they will get it in their language that they chose for in their settings. So, I mean, the apps are doing the work for you. You don't even have to translate, right? And, we at Inspired Instruction do offer workshops for schools as well as families, okay? So an example is, here's a Train the Brain workshop that is really for families, okay? Where you're talking about how can families help their child or children improve study skills or executive functioning at home. Here's one that's Nurturing Family Wellness, a holistic approach. And here's one that's more for schools, where it's working collaboratively and effectively with parents. Okay, so we offer workshops in both English and Spanish. Okay, and a fun fact, if you did not know this already, but you probably did, you can use your Title III funding for parent PDs. Okay, so if you have any Title III funding left over, you might want to consider doing workshops for your parents. That's where Title III funding, remember, you don't use it, you lose it type of thing, right? So Title III funding is specifically designed for your parent PDs. So if you have any funding, start using it, right? So again, I hope you found what I had to share helpful. And what I'd like to do is put in, I would love your feedback on what I had to share today. So I'm putting it in the chat, because as we're coming close to an end of our webinar, I told you it was a short one this time because I know a lot of people are busy. So if you can please just take a moment or two to fill out the evaluation while I wait around for any questions that you might have regarding the webinar. I'm here, okay? If you want to type it, please go right ahead in the chat and I will answer your question. Because I see somebody raise their hand. I'm not sure if you're able to just ask your question. If not, and you want to just post it in the chat, that would be great. Kara, I see you raised your hand. Is there any way you can use the chat to write your comment? Oh, I see. Hold on. I can allow you to talk. Go ahead, Kara.
The chat says that it's disabled.
Oh, does it show the form?
No, I see nothing except for it just says disabled.
Okay, let's see. How about now?
I can see that I can post, but I don't see the form
Okay, so
or
let me try to
anything in the
post the
chat.
form again. Thank you so much.
No problem.
How about now?
No.
Still nothing? Oh, hold on. Let's see. Sean, I see your hand was raised as well. If you have a question.
I can see the form now.
You can. Awesome. Thank you so much, Kara. Yeah, so the link to this webinar will be posted, will be sent to you, and will also be on our website in the next 24 to 48 hours. Yes, I'm going to share the family survey. After this webinar is over, you're gonna get an email with the webinar handout, okay? And it's going to look like this. I'm quickly gonna share. Let me see if I can quickly show you. You're going to get a resource that looks like this, okay? And in there, it has the webinar notes. So everything that I spoke about today, you're gonna get. The family questionnaire is there too, and the parent feedback slip will be there as well. Okay? And again, the webinar recording will be shared with you. And if you come back to the website, and I can show you that quickly as well. If you go into our website and you go to resources, is it resources? No, sorry. Events, sorry, events. You see how here, there's nothing yet, but you see how there's all this recording here. So in next 2 days, you will see the recording here for anybody to view, okay? I'm still here if anybody has any questions for me, but please do fill out the evaluation form, as that really tells us how we can become better. Absolutely, Tanisha, thank you so much for joining, greatly appreciate it. I will stick around for a few more minutes because I see there's still some people in here. If you have any questions, please put it in the chat or raise your hand and I will give you access to talk. Thank you so much, everybody. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.